I am here tonight. My name is Sean Stiers. My plaid-covered friend's name is Vince D'Addario. How are
A
you
lot of
tonight,
green.
Vince?
A lot of green going
There's a lot
on
of green,
today.
isn't it? I've got like the OD green. You've got the
Yeah.
plaid green on. DK wasting no time, just giving me a hard time. We went more than an extra 5 minutes last night. Jesse and I did a full hour of rapid fire
Oh,
last night.
wow.
Yeah. And we
Wow.
got into rapid fire a little bit early. DK was like, too early, because we were in at like 35 minutes into the show. And I was like, don't worry, we've got a lot of stuff we're going to cover in rapid fire. And I felt like we gave people their money's worth. And
Love it.
you know how this show works. We don't usually go 90 minutes, like
Yeah, it just depends on what's going
we
on.
definitely don't usually go 2 hours.
Yeah.
Which we did last week. You and I did. And
Yes, we did.
we definitely don't go 3 and 4 hours because, I've got DK and Tommy Guns. Oh, could you even do a show like, but look, nobody can do a show like Brian. Okay. Let's just get that out of the way. Right.
Brian is his own man.
That is right. That is his own animal.
Yes,
is what
correct.
that is.
Correct.
How are you tonight, Vince?
I'm great, man. I'm fantastic. With all the, I haven't, let's see, the last time I was on was when we were sitting around waiting for the bowl announcement. And so this is the first opportunity I've had to talk about any of this stuff, guys opting out. I think it's Guy opting out. Has there been more than one up to this point opting out officially?
Just one so far. One so far.
I know there's some chuckerhead that's be like, oh, this guy's opting out and this guy's opting out. I have sources. Okay, congratulations, dude.
Well,
basically you're projecting stuff that people have known for a long time, but that's not your responsibility, dude.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
I mean, we've talked about that before. Like there's stuff that we have pretty good source on that, we know is probably going to happen, but we're not talking about it until it happens.
Right.
Because we're not here to spread rumors. We're here to talk about facts and how it impacts the team once they become fact. It's just that's what it boils down to. Well, I guess we kind of, have to keep repeating that. And I've already seen some stuff floating around in the chat and whatever. I know.
No respect.
Have a little respect.
Process,
come on. Respect the process. That's right. That's right.
But
here's what we know. Here's what we know for fact. Florida International receiver Kris Mitchell, he's committed to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And this was actually something that, like when we're getting ready to post a story and stuff like that, there's like the back end of the website, the publishing side. And there are things that I've seen on that side that have caught me off guard over the last week. Like Brian has things ready to go. And I'm like, and I'll text Vince. Of course, we don't talk about him on this show again until, they actually become fat. But I'll text Vince and I'm like, oh boy, here's what Brian's got ready to go. It's like, are you kidding me? But this was a good one because this was a good one there for a while.
Was it?
And I thought that, like that it had already happened. And I was ready to, hey, we're going to talk about this and whatever else. And so a few hours go by and then Kris Mitchell becomes official. And he had a breakout season for Florida International this year. 64 receptions, 1,118 yards, 6 touchdowns, led Conference USA in receiving yards this season. And this is a really nice one for Notre Dame right here to get this kind of commitment. He was in town over the weekend.
Yep. Nope. Completely agree. Obviously, Notre Dame put the full court press on him. They know what they need in the portal, and they're going after it aggressively, which I really do like, to be honest with you. I mean, they're not wasting any time, and they have identified who the top targets are, wide receiver wise. I think they've identified 3 guys that they, have a lot of like for, right? And they're going after them. And I dig that. I think that, Notre Dame kind of, put their toe in the water a little bit in the transfer portal, in the past, and they didn't really get after it like I would have appreciated them getting after it this year, man. Wide receivers leave. Okay, well, we're going to pinpoint who we want to go after, and we're getting them on campus within, 3 days of the portal opening up? Because the portal opened up yesterday.
Well, look, Marcus Freeman talked about it last week. You can't wait until these guys go into the portal to start scouting guys. You've got to kind of, they've got to get their own sources kind of working out there and say, okay, who's got a good chance that they're going to end up in the portal? Who do we have a chance to get? And they obviously did their homework on this guy. They had him in over the weekend before before the portal officially opened. But you could do that because he was a grad and, all that.
Exactly. So he was in,
Well within the,
and
yeah.
you got 3 more big time transfers. People in the transfer portal coming in tomorrow. That's obviously being widely reported across, all whatevers, and obviously on irishbreakdown.com as well. So you got 3 major guys coming in. Hopefully you're going to get commitments from those 3 guys over the next day or two. And then you're looking pretty good in the transfer portal. Now they're going to piecemeal a couple things here and there. There's another guy that committed, obviously, that we're going to talk about on the defensive side of the football. And so Notre Dame knows what they want, and they're going after it hard. And I feel like, now granted, I've kind of got the Notre Dame blinders on, but it feels like Notre Dame is way more aggressive than a lot of other teams out there. And I like that.
I like it as well. And I think that just the personality that this coaching staff has, and we talk about it in recruiting the young guys, but I think that that goes a long way with these older veteran guys as well. I think word kind of gets out. And I also think, as we've talked about, the NIL stuff with Sam Hartman, I think that goes a long way. There was, Audric Estime, there was some stuff publicized with him, but especially with Hartman because he was a transfer and everything else. I think that that goes a long way. And also Sam kind of being the Pied Piper a little bit, tooting how much he loves it here at Notre Dame and how much, he loves Marcus Freeman and just the whole thing. I think that that's got to help. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of, maybe been helpful in some of that recruitment,
Yeah, no, I completely agree because he'll tell anybody that wants to listen, what he was able to do at Notre Dame, how it raised his profile and all of those different things. And then, of course, how Notre Dame Nation, or whatever you want to call the people that follow Notre Dame, how they embraced him, because they did. They embraced Sam Hartman as one of their own, same way that they embraced Jack Cohn when he was here, and it was a two-way street. It was a love fest on both sides, right? Because I think Jack and Sam, respectively, both dove into their Notre Dame experience, full go. It wasn't just like, there's been other transfers that I don't think have really embraced what Notre Dame is. I think those 2 guys both embraced Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame embraced them back. And he's not afraid to tell people about that, regardless of the outcome of on the field.
Jack jumped in, but personality is a lot different.
Completely
Cohen a lot more reserved and not, not quite as effusive and as Sam Hartman is.
And the NIL stuff wasn't what it is now.
Not even close.
Even 2 years ago when Jack Cohn was here, right?
It was really just starting.
That's different.
That year.
Yeah, Notre Dame hadn't embraced NIL the way they have now. You know what I mean? And so that part of it was different. So I think Jack Cohn didn't get out in front of a lot of things the way Sam Hartman did. But a lot of the stuff that we saw from Sam Hartman was also because of the NIL thing, right? Giving his the clothing line and giving the headphones to the team and all of those different things, I think, put him out in front of the team and social media and all. And the ladies loved him too, which didn't hurt.
Michael said Leonard and Collins are undergrads, and he's talking about Bo Collins, the receiver from Clemson, and they're not seniors. Like, I'm not sure exactly where Riley Leonard is with his degree. And there's a reason Riley Leonard is visiting in the middle of the week instead of last weekend because because that is not his profile. He is not a graduate student. That's why he's coming after the portal officially opened rather than like Mitchell. He could come before the portal opened because he is a grad transfer. Difference there. But they do. I mean, they've got the big visits coming. They've got all kinds of them lined up. What do you think? They take 1 more receiver, 2 more receivers? I've kind of heard maybe they were in the market for 2, but man, with the kind of quality guys they've got visiting and, with what they've got at receiver, I wouldn't be shocked if they end up taking 3 guys, especially if they're outside guys like Mitchell, just because that's, agreed. Well documented. Yeah. They've got all these slot guys. You got to have someone who can perform on the outside, though.
I assumed they were going to go after 2. But they haven't canceled anybody's visit. You know what I mean? They've got 2 guys coming in tomorrow from all accounts, right? So if they're bringing both guys in, I don't think it's going to be a race to see who commits first. I think if both of them want to come, they would take both, which would put Notre Dame at 11 scholarship receivers, which is more than enough. I think 10 is the target number. I think you go with 11 just in case, because there still is the spring portal time, which, you never know what's going to happen there. And so let's see how the depth chart shakes out during spring and all of that. So I think you take the commitment of both and you see what happens. I think that's a safe way to go about things because both of those guys are good, solid, not just depth pieces, but they're good, solid rotation guys that can help you. So you're not hurting yourself by bringing those guys in my opinion.
Right. A few different things from the chat. Lath, what do we think about the lacrosse transfer Tyler Buckner? Stick around for rapid fire. We will be addressing that then. Carberry Q, I'm wanting to know if Hartman is sitting. I heard he is going to. Stick around for a few minutes. We'll be talking about that with comments from Marcus Freeman here in just a second. DK with a very important question. Can Riley Leonard grow a beard? I'm going to base this on what he looks like. He's very baby-faced. I'm going to guess it's going to come in little splotches, if he gets anything coming in. So
doesn't he have, I'm going back and like watching him play, doesn't he have like blondish brown hair, like a dirty blonde kind of a look or something like that? So the
light
beard
brown,
look,
maybe.
My opinion, the beard's not going to look as good as it did with Sam Hartman because it's not that dark, bearded look. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and I agree with Father David. No way he can grow a beard.
I agree. I don't think so.
But the world wants to know, Vince, how's the new toilet? I didn't realize that you were in the market for.
Well, because on Sunday when we were doing the show that was supposed to last an hour, and we passed the 2-hour mark. I was like, I got a toilet to install.
No show lasts an hour.
Yeah,
back to the top.
I know.
When the big
I was like,
involved.
I got a toilet to install. We need to wrap this up. And so we got it all installed, got the old one out, the new one in, had a little bit of a leakage problem, but got it all squared away. It's been broken in numerous times already. Family of 7. That's how that goes.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking.
Very important stuff. Commitment from Arizona State. A nickel Jordan Clark has also committed. He's the son of former Pittsburgh Steeler and current NFL analyst on ESPN, Ryan Clark, who apparently has a relationship with Marcus Freeman, and basically looking at Jordan Clark to take over the spot held by Thomas Harper this year. Very valuable, a really experienced guy from Arizona State. He's played quite a bit, 50 tackles this year, 9 pass breakups at Arizona State this season.
Yeah, I saw some highlights of him. Obviously, I haven't watched specific game film, but I saw some highlights on X today. And no, he's a rangy player. He, I think he's going to fit in well in the slot. I was kind of hoping that might be, a build from within situation for Notre Dame. But, you can never have too much depth. They obviously saw that as a source of need. We knew that they were going to go after a nickel. And they got one pretty quick. So that obviously he was their number one guy, the guy that they wanted the most. And so they, once again, Notre Dame going after, they're targeting who they want. They're going after them and they're getting a commitment. Like I dig that, man. I dig it.
I concur. Again, Sportsbook Lab apparently just jumping in, wants to know about Hartman. Hold tight. We're going to get to that. But even more good news today, Xavier Watts, fresh off winning the Bronco Nagurski Award last night, held a Zoom call with the media. We were in that call about an hour ago, and he was asked about the Sun Bowl. Here is what Xavier Watts had to say.
Yes, I will be playing in the bowl game, yep. I just want to play football regardless. I mean, even if I was maybe to decide to go to the draft, I think I'd probably lean towards or want to play the game anyway, because regardless, it's like your last time around all the same guys that you're going to be with. It's your last time as the 2023 Fighting Irish. I mean, I probably would have played regardless of I was leaving or coming back anyway. So
didn't realize how much I was typing at that point, but Xavier Watts coming back. He's coming back for the bowl. He was asked more about draft and all that kind of stuff, and basically is still in the decision-making process. There were a couple of questions I think that could have been asked at the end if we had a little bit more time on that Zoom. That didn't. Just to clarify, kind of the deadline is mid-January, the deadline to declare. He's definitely coming back for the bowl. So I think that's the biggest thing. You've got the best defensive player in the nation.
Yep.
And he's at the very least coming back, and he's going to play in the Sun Bowl. So that's great news for Notre Dame.
I gave him the slow clap there because he basically said what a lot of us old school guys think. Like, it's your last opportunity, potentially, if you leave. It's your last opportunity to play with the guys, man. Like, take advantage of it. It's a bowl game. It's fun. Like, I just love that. I absolutely love that. If it means that he's coming back next year, that's even better. Obviously, we'll let him decide and go through that and announce that on his own if that's the case. But I just love that mentality. I love that mentality. It's like, hey, this is one last chance to play with the boys, and I'm going to go after it. And I think that's fantastic. And I
think so as well.
I also love the fact that he's taking the Notre Dame education very seriously, from what it sounds like. Wants that degree, maybe wants that graduate degree to go along with it. I mean,
working on his master's degree right now.
This kid has a head on his shoulders, man. Yep. And he knows how important that degree can be for him. And so it just seems like he's got his priorities in order to me. Now, best player in college football on the defensive side of the football, like that's saying something. I mean, you can take that trophy and ride it into the NFL draft. And I guess I wouldn't really blame him if he did that, but I would also, as a Notre Dame fan, love it if he came back.
He was talking about, look, I've still got some places that I want to improve my game as well.
See,
so
I love that kid even more. That's
fantastic. I know. It's awesome news. And Marcus Freeman talked about this last week. After you lose that second game, even, you're at that point, you're out of playoff contention. Now that'll change next year. You'll still be in playoff contention with 2 losses next year. But this year, you're not getting in a 14 field with 2 losses. You're not going to a New Year's Six Bowl after you lose the third game. And what Freeman was saying was, what's the difference between that, playing the rest of the season after you lose that second and third game and you're not playing to be in the playoff or a New Year's Six Bowl versus, one more game. And that's kind of how I've always looked at it as well. I really am kind of shocked. I don't want to see this become a thing, but I am shocked that we haven't seen more guys just opt out of a whole month of the season, rather than just a bowl game, because there are. You're like,
when they know that they're not playing for
what's
anything.
the difference? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And it's a shame that is the case, or that could be the case moving forward. I would hate for that to be the deal. I hate the opt-out situation. I mean, and I don't blame the players because it's the product of the system and the way things go these days. And so I don't blame the player per se. I just hate the way it's gone. I hate the direction of college football in that regard. I really, really dislike it a lot. So, but it is what it is. Here we are.
Shots fired at Vince. Mark thinks he's afraid to go to El Paso.
It's messed up, Mark. It's messed up. I don't appreciate it. I'll tell you what, Mark, Brian is going to the bowl game. That is absolutely happening. I'm not going to the bowl game for a variety of reasons, but to be honest with you, the top reason is because it's on my birthday, and I still have kids who like birthdays more than I do, and they were going to be really upset if I was going to miss my birthday. They want to hang out with me.
Birthdays in the D'Addario household, I have found, are like national holidays.
They are, man.
They value those days, so you can't mess with the birthdays if you're a D'Addario.
You can't. And that comes from the top, man. That comes from the matriarch and down. And so I'm just here for the party. So, I will not be going, but I will be participating in all events from the house as if it is a normal away game. But if it was like Tampa or something, I probably
every 6 years, I guess. I'm at a football game on counting leap years. Is that how it works? Is it 6 years or 7? Like, what's that cycle?
Well, it's 4.
Or is it 8?
It's 4.
Is it?
Yeah. Yep.
So Saturday wouldn't come up every 4 years, would it?
Well, no, the Saturday doesn't come up every 4 years. No,
that's what I'm saying. I'm at a football game.
I got what you're saying. Yes.
College football game. And I guess actually when I was doing high school games on top of, like there were multiple years in a row that we were at a football game.
And there's multiple years in a row.
Because I have an October birthday is what I'm saying.
Yeah, when you and I were calling high school basketball on my birthday, that happened plenty of times. So there's certain things I don't mind doing, but being across the country away from the family is a little bit different. So I'm going to stay home.
The other thing that I don't think either one of us realized before we got married, because we share the same anniversary date,
do.
August 7th. What is it? Is it 10 years apart or is it 11 years apart?
I think it's
Yours,
11.
yours is 04.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 11 years apart. Mine's
Yeah.
93. We didn't realize that early August that training camp would be starting around that time.
And I messed up big time because when I got married, I had no desire necessarily to be a high school football coach.
Mm-hmm.
That transpired pretty rapidly after I got married, and all of a sudden, my anniversary is during 2-a-days.
Yes.
Every year.
Made you even more popular around your own household.
That was never a good thing. Yeah.
Come on, I want to go to dinner.
Vince, oh, man.
When are you going to be home?
Trying to cap off a second practice, just dead tired. Anyway, yeah.
Yep.
Glad
All right, I got a few comments from Marcus Freeman from his Zoom conference that he did yesterday. Some stuff we didn't get to touch on yesterday, but a lot of people want to know what's going on with the strength coach hiring process.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that Marcus Freeman talked about. Here is the answer.
Oh, that's definitely in the top of our priorities, my priority. Still working through this process and going through some interviews, and I hope to make a decision here sooner rather than later.
There you go. Sooner rather than later. I realize that doesn't give you a specific timeline of when he wants to do it, but as I said, they really are looking at, what is it, like second week of January? Isn't that typically when they come back from classes, second or third, like middle of January?
16th.
Yeah.
January 16th is the first day of class.
That's really when they've got to have somebody back, because that's when they start their winter conditioning. So,
yeah, they personally, I think they need to make this decision by about the first of the year. To be honest with you, I think that would be the best spot, because the benefit of having this bowl game on the 29th is they can come back, they can get settled, they can make this announcement once the bowl game is over, and then they've got a couple of weeks to get their off-season conditioning, because it's a process with the strength and conditioning coach, the head coach. I mean, they go through it, and it has to be approved by the head coach, and so there's going to be a lot of back and forth, but they'll have that ready to go when the guys get back after their winter break after the bowl game. So I think that that's probably the timeline I would think about it. They're not going to make an announcement, I wouldn't think, before the bowl game. Maybe they do, but I would think they're going to pull somebody from the NFL. They're going to pull somebody from another college. They're going to let them kind of finish things out. And, you don't see a lot of mid-season hires like that. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
It probably would depend wherever this person is coming from, what that looks like. Right. So
they have to make sure they've got the right person, right,
100%. This is honestly, Sean, this is like hiring like a coordinator, in my opinion. I mean,
well, and that's kind of how they always viewed Bayless. Like, he wasn't just a strength coach. He was one of the coaches. He was part of the staff, a very vital part of the staff. And
absolutely.
I think the biggest thing is there are a lot more sort of recent trends, I guess. And like that kind of stuff that, like the conditioning, just the whole thing, the performance, like so much has changed, and it changes. It seems like so rapidly. Like back when I was in high school, it was like, if you were going to run, it's like, okay, go out and run a mile or 2 miles or whatever. And now virtually everything is some form of sprint, which makes sense, because it's
explosive,
like, explosive muscles and all that different
explosive
kind of,
lifts,
regardless of sports. It's like, and there's just so much that continues to change, and it changes so much that I think that's where they're at. Like they new school is kind of the word that you keep hearing in terms of what they're looking for. Someone with a little bit more new school approach.
And that's, the rub between Marcus Freeman and Matt Bayless was a little bit of that new school versus old school. I mean, that was part of it, right? And part of it was more behind the scenes, but that was part of it. And so Marcus Freeman's going to want somebody who's probably more on the cutting edge of some of that stuff, and which makes a lot of sense. I mean, the high school that my kid goes to, they don't have like sport specific lifting programs. It's all explosive lifts, because name a sport where you don't have to be explosive. You know what I mean? So it's all about explosion and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it makes sense in
Cross
that
country?
regard.
Like, do you have to be explosive in cross country?
That's why those kids are so skinny and little. I mean,
Yeah.
but like from a lifting standpoint, it's all explosive lifts. Now you do different stuff on the conditioning side of things, and that's more sport specific, like you said, for cross country and distance and things of that nature. But like lifting is lifting, man, and you want to be explosive in your lifts, and the rest of it is left up to the position coaches and the sport specific coaches. And so it makes a lot of sense, and that's where things are trending right now.
DK says he just watched Rocky IV. I did too. The anniversary of Rocky IV was like last week or the week before, I think. The difference in their workouts, who won? Vince wouldn't know because he's never seen Rocky IV. But DK, I'll let you tell Marcus Freeman that and see how that goes. And, you can deliver the news and see if he goes for that, I guess. So we got our first Notre Dame bowl opt-out today. If you had Marist Liufau on your bowl bingo card, you win.
Yeah, you do.
Announced on X today that he's going to forego the Sun Bowl to get ready for the Senior Bowl in the NFL draft. Vince, Marist Liufau, opting out.
When he accepted the bid to the Senior Bowl, and that kind of made you go, okay, well, if you're going to the Senior Bowl, maybe you probably want to get more film on. I would think, maybe that's something that you should do in the bowl game, but it also kind of puts it into that 50-50 range, right? And when you accept that bid, that means you're going to the NFL like that. You don't go to the Senior Bowl, obviously, and then come back to school. So we knew he was going to the NFL when he accepted that bid a few days ago. So we knew that was the path. Then it's like, okay, do they want to play in the Sun Bowl? Maybe. I don't know. So I guess I'm not that surprised per se. I am very curious. Like of all the guys, well, no, not of all the guys. He's one of the guys. I'm very curious to see how the NFL sees them.
I know. I honestly have no idea what to expect from him as a pro.
If you make a highlight film of Marist Liufau, you'd be like, okay,
you can make it look good.
This kid's a day 2 pick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And he's got that hair just like Troy Polamalu, and people
he's got the measurables. He's fast. He hits hard, like all of those different things. But you throw in the game film, it's like, So I'm very curious to see how NFL. I mean, it only takes one, right? But I'm very curious to see how NFL teams view him and some other guys that are going to declare most likely, and what that looks like. Like, you didn't think you needed another year, or maybe the coaches are like, you know what, we're ready to move on. I don't know what that conversation was like, but Marist was an interesting one for me.
Look who's here.
Oh, geez.
Jesse says Marist will be a good NFL linebacker. I see him obviously playing outside. I like his best. I think his best chance for success at the next level is just sitting on the edge, rushing the quarterback. That's what it seems like to me. 6'2", 235. I mean, he's kind of a tweener for that profile, which to me makes it that much more surprising that he's opting out, because opting out just seems like a status thing now. Like, I get if you're a first round, borderline second round, that kind of guy, but that's not going to be Marist, and that's not going to be most of the guys that we're going to talk about. Joe Alt is really the only one who's in that conversation. Everyone, I could see Estime going in the second round. Like, we don't know what he's going to do yet, but again, it feels like a status thing. And do you really need to opt out at this point? Like, what are you opting out for? Like, what do you really, what investment are you protecting? Because I get it. Someone said Jalen Smith earlier, and Jalen Smith, he is the prime example of, if you're going to be a first round guy, there's no reason to play in any bowl game that's not for a national championship, quite honestly.
Nope. I get that. And I get that. Like I said, I don't blame the kid. I blame the system. You know what I mean? And so, look, Audric, I could see going fairly high. I'm very interested to see how the NFL treats Cam Hart, because he has a lot of measurables that are very, very sought after from defensive coordinators and NFL brass, right? And his last year was outstanding at Notre Dame. And so he's got the on-field product. He's got the measurables. The only thing that I worry about with him is the injury history. And he's the only one, honestly, that I'd be like, you know what? Don't play in the bowl game. It's not worth it. You put together 12 games of really, really good film, all of that. There's no reason to risk it because of your history. Risk it in the Sun Bowl. Like him, I get him.
Cam Hart, is that who you're talking?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's
I get him. You know
that's
what I mean?
a good caveat. Not just first round guys, but guys with injury histories.
Right.
Like there's no reason for a guy like Cam Hart because of the injury history, and that
Right.
that could I would think he's going to be drafted someplace, but how high he could. Just the fact that he's got that history could.
I think his range could be anywhere from like high day 2 to like high day 3. Like I think, and that's a pretty high range, right? I think that it depended on how he tests and all that, because his height, his length, like that's what they want in corners nowadays. You know what I mean? And I think he could be a very productive corner. It's just the injury history.
Well, Irish Steak says Marist has injury history. He's had one injury. It's like
he has.
Cam Hart has had multiple injuries. Now it kept him out for a whole season, Marist Liufau, but Cam Hart has had multiple. It's at least 3, if not 4, off the top of my head with Cam Hart. I mean, he's had both shoulders.
Like the shoulder,
and it's like that's history. Like when you're talking about multiple. Again, Marist has one, but it was a bone break. Like it literally could have happened to anybody,
right?
And he's played 2 seasons since then. And I get with him, his stock is high. There's no reason, like go out while your stock is at its highest, because he was in the conversation for the Butkus and all that stuff. But the opt-out part, I don't know. And again, I agree with what you're saying. Like it makes sense from the Cam Hart point of view because he has had so many injuries, and the risk of that, it's just not worth it when you're talking about your future now being on the line. And I mean, be glad that he made it through. Like for him personally, the fact that he made it through this entire season healthy and he performed at a high level in the process is freaking awesome. Like, because I agree with what you're saying. Like he's got the talent and what he's shown so far. He could be a day 2 guy. Like very easily he could be a day 2
and anywhere.
But
like
because of the injuries, he could slide all over the place.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly. And I'm not an NFL draft like analyst or expert or anything like that. So I don't know what the cornerback class, looks like going into the 24 draft. That's a question for Ryan that I will ask him as we get closer to the draft and I actually care more. But like, I just think that from a measurable standpoint, from a film standpoint, he's going to be one of the top guys. It's just the injuries. And when the doctors look him over, is he going to pass these physicals and, do all the things that they want him to do physically and, all of that. But, from a character standpoint, from all that stuff, he checks all of those boxes, so.
Antoine, where did it go? Say Chris Tyree just committed to Virginia. I just checked that out, and he did post that on X. He is committed to the University of Virginia. So going back home, Chris Tyree. Hopefully,
I think we all kind of saw that one coming, which is, he wants an opportunity to be the guy, and he'll have an opportunity to be the guy at Virginia, which is awesome. I mean, that's awesome for him. And he'll also be traveling to Notre Dame Stadium next year. So on November 16th. So it'll be Chris Tyree Day on November 16th, which I believe is the final home game of the season.
Sounds right.
So
somewhat similar to, this year when you had Sam Hartman going up against Wake Forest.
Yeah. So I'm excited to watch Chris Tyree, actually. I hope he has a day. I really do. Not that I want Virginia to beat Notre Dame or anything, but I just hope Chris Tyree individually has a great day that day. It'll be fun to watch.
So Marcus Freeman was asked about the bowl opt-out thing. Like, does he know who's going to be opting out? And you'll hear a question about Sam Hartman in there as well. So that's what will lead us into our Sam Hartman conversation, since that's what everyone wants to talk about. Here we go.
And we know who's playing and who's going to opt out. We're moving forward with the guys that we have, but I want to make sure we let those guys that are not going to play make their announcements in the next few days, and I want to give them the opportunity to do that.
And you share Sam Hartman is playing.
As I said, I'm going to let the guys that are not playing make their announcements.
Okay, so you heard Eric Hansen with that follow-up there about Sam Hartman. What did you think specifically of how Freeman answered that question? Because I did see some people, it seems like you could read into that if you were trying very hard with just the way that he answered that. As I said, I'm going to let the guys who are opting out make their own announcements.
I mean, you can read between the lines.
Are we
obviously.
reading too far?
Probably not. I mean, I think that, I think that it's safe to say he's probably not going to play, but, I feel like if he was going to play, Marcus Freeman would have been like, Sam Hartman's playing. Like, I feel like he would have pounded the table, because I do believe the last time we talked to Marcus Freeman, or the last time, Sam Hartman was here, or we heard him talk, he's like, I got 2 more games left. And there was the last game of the regular season and a bowl game remaining. I think he planned on playing. I think some circumstances have changed. And
I asked Marcus Freeman last week in that Monday Zoom right after the Stanford
That's right. He
game.
said, I expect him to play.
I asked him about Stanford or about Hartman, and he said, yeah, I'm expecting him to play.
Yeah. And so he didn't say that this time around, right? And so
I guess the question is, what could have changed Sam Hartman's mind if that is the case? The bigger question is, will Sam Hartman play, or should Sam Hartman play in the bowl game? And when you look at this, is to me what could affect it. Like, we don't know for sure that Joe Alt is going to opt out, but as we said, Joe Alt's going to be a first-round draft pick. It would make complete sense. He hasn't declared yet,
right?
But it would make complete sense if Joe Alt declares for the draft and says, I'm opting out, because he's projected potentially as a top 10 pick right now. I've seen some people like projecting him that high. Obviously, that can change once once draft season rolls around and everyone starts getting, poked and prodded and overanalyzed even more. But Joe Alt could easily opt out. There's a possibility that Blake Fisher is going to declare for the draft and opt out. Again, we don't have anything for sure yet, but there's a very good possibility that that's going to happen. So if those 2 guys, the 2 tackles, left and right tackles, both opt out, there would be 1 opening day starter remaining on the offensive line for the Sun Bowl, and that would be Pat Coogan at left guard. And so, like, if you look at, why would Sam Hartman decide he's going to opt out? Like, what's his future really? He's not going to be a high round pick and all that. I mean, he's a definite day 3 guy. I would be shocked if he's not a day 3 guy. Like,
me too.
I just can't see any path.
Although I was shocked where Ian Book got drafted. So
that's true.
There's that.
That's true. But I mean, you're looking at a potential offensive line of Tosh Baker, Pat Coogan, Ashton Craig, Billy Schrouth, Emil Wagner. Is there talent in there? Sure. Is there a lot of experience in there?
Talent.
No.
Unproven talent.
That's right. Unproven talent. That is exactly right. So, I mean, to me, like, that's the decision. It's basically, it's a career decision for Sam Hartman. Like, is that the offensive line potentially that I want to play behind? I would think that has to be the driving factor for him at this point, since he is, as you said a couple of weeks ago that he was going to play in a bowl game. Marcus Freeman said last week he's going to play in a bowl game, but now there at least publicly is some uncertainty, non-confirmation about whether or not Sam Hartman's going to play in a bowl game. I would have to think that has got to be, if not the driving factor, one of the driving factors that Sam Hartman has to be calculating right now.
Yeah, and I get it. I'm disappointed if that's the case. You'd want to see him play, and I think it can only help him to get some more film, to be honest with you. And, if he goes out and he plays really, really well.
I just don't think that matters for him.
All right, that's fair. I mean, he hasn't played well the last half of the season. So I feel like he needs to
like if you could go out on top, have a good game.
Yeah, that would be my only argument, was that, man, you need to go out and have a good day, because right now your most recent games haven't been great. And so you would like to have some better film. Like, that's what I would say. That would be my counter argument. Everything you said is absolutely accurate, though. And at this point, as a Notre Dame fan, I'm okay with him stepping away, because you're either going to get Steve Angeli or Kenny Minchie, and okay, let's see it happen. Somebody in the chat said maybe he's still undecided. Marcus Freeman made it very clear they know who's opting out and who's not.
They all know at this point.
There's no undecided at this point.
I'll play that soundbite again.
Yeah.
Here's what Marcus Freeman said about if he knows who's going to opt out.
we know who's playing and who's going to opt out. We're moving forward with the guys that we have, but I want to make sure we let those guys that are not going to play make their announcements in the next few days, and I want to give them the opportunity to do that.
Can you share Sam Hartman is playing?
As I said, I'm going to let the guys that are not playing make their announcements.
So they know who's going to opt out. It's just a matter of letting them make the announcements on their own timeline, which is, again, the tack that we take with this show. We're not going to just jump out there and start blurting out stuff that we think we know before guys actually make their announcements. Marist Liufau made his announcement today. He is the only one to make the announcement so far. So Marist will not be playing in the Sun Bowl. We're still waiting on those other guys right now. But if Hartman doesn't play in the bowl, then we know that Notre Dame's got a quarterback. They're bringing in a transfer portal quarterback. There's very high profile one visiting on campus Wednesday and Thursday this week. What do you think they do in terms of the bowl game? Who would they play, do you think, at quarterback if Hartman's not back there?
So, I mean, logic would say that that Steve Angeli probably gets the start. He's been the second string guy all season, the whole deal, right? Here's my crazy wide-eyed look at the situation as a fan, as a former coach, I want to see what we've got kind of a situation, right? To me, and reading the tea leaves. So to me, look, Steve Angeli is going into his third year at Notre Dame, right? If they thought that he was the future of Notre Dame football, they're not getting a transfer quarterback. That's my opinion. That's Vince's opinion. Okay. I think that they've already pretty much decided that Steve Angeli isn't going to be the guy moving forward. If that's the case, right? If that's the case, then I'm riding with Kenny Minchie in the bowl game. Let's see what this kid has. Let's give him some reps in practice. Let's go out and see what you've got, right? Or at the very least, you can start Steve Angeli, and then there's packages or there's a plan to play Kenny Minchie in this game a significant amount. That's how I would attack it.
I agree to an extent with the second part there. Significant amount, I don't know. But Jesse, Mr. D'Addario, says, still got to win the bowl. And that's
absolutely.
That's the line that we've taken the whole time. And I completely agree. Marcus Freeman has talked about it, and we've talked about it. Getting to 10 wins is a very big deal. It would be the seventh time in the last 9 years they've got to 10 wins. Of course, they had the run, end last year when they didn't get to 10 wins. They've got a chance to do that. You're up against it already with, if you do have these other guys opting out, you've got a linebacker in Marist Liufau who they like a lot. And even though he's not necessarily the most popular guy among the Notre Dame fans, he was productive this year and he had a good enough year. He's going to the Senior Bowl. He's going to be drafted someplace. My point is, you're going to be you're without the wide receivers that you're without, potentially that, I guess we don't know, but they, Marcus Freeman knows. What I'm saying is, if they're without these offensive linemen, you've still got to find a way to give your team the best chance to win. And I think that you do have to weigh the future to some extent. I get what you're saying, but I think that they've got to roll the guy out there who's going to give them the best chance to win. But at the same time, if you get an opportunity, you find a way, maybe to, as you said, in some package situations, to get Kenny Minchie on the field a time or two, to get him out there, to give him some real world snaps out there as well.
I agree 1,000% that getting the W is by far the number one priority here. By far the number one priority. I just think Kenny Minchie can give you a great opportunity to win this game. That's me personally, right?
How do we know that? We haven't got to see him play a real down.
How do we know? How do we know Steve Angeli gives you the best chance of winning? We've seen him play a bunch of scrubs.
But at least he's run real plays, I guess, in a game. We haven't seen
it's a pretty small sample size.
But there's also a reason he's in that spot. There's a reason he's number 2 and not Minchie, right? He was still number 2
throughout the regular season. Throughout the regular season, absolutely.
Right.
I think this opportunity, you've got a month off. You've got a little more than a month off. I think this is the opportunity to be like, hey, depth chart's wide open, boys. Let's get after it and see where people are going to fall. Because,
Well,
like you said,
if they do it like they did last year, Minchie's going to get his share of some reps in bowl practice, especially if there is no Sam Hartman. He's going to get a lot of reps, I would think, in bowl practice, because
I would think so.
That's what Marcus Freeman has said. Is the first few days, especially of bowl practice, I think they did it kind of to give the veterans a rest and to give young guys a look. They had more young guys out there getting live reps to see what they could do. And, we got to see some of those guys in last year's Gator Bowl that performed.
Absolutely. Like I said, whoever wins the job is the way I look at it. You've got 15 practices, which is basically like a fall camp, essentially. So you've got 15 practices, in my opinion, to figure out who the best is. If it's Steve Angeli, roll with Steve Angeli. To me, the writing on the wall says we're not buying the Steve Angeli stock because we're going to get Riley Leonard. That's what it says to me, right? So, whatever.
When you look at, I don't disagree with that. The fact that they're getting Riley Leonard and the fact that they already have Kenny Minchie and the fact that they've got CJ Carr coming in to practice during the bowl, and he's obviously going to be an early, that just all signs point to it's not looking good for Steve Angeli's future at Notre Dame. Right?
Agreed. Yeah, no.
Like Decaf says he thinks Angeli hits the portal after the bowl, not the quarterback Parker wants running the offense going forward. Like the second part I agree with. The thing that Steve Angeli is going to have to weigh, I thought this meant a whole lot more to Drew Pine than it did, was he's 2 years into this Notre Dame degree thing now. Does he, if he's not, if he does find himself bumped down on the depth chart with all these other factors, quarterback coming in and young talent, coming in behind him as well, does he at least stick it out for another year to finish this degree before he moves on? Or does he just say, look, I want to go play somewhere right now? I think he could probably go play someplace next year and
I do too.
And do better than Drew Pine did this past season.
At
Arizona State. Now, it's not saying a lot. Do have to give Pine the fact that he was injured, but at the same time, that's something that if it comes to that, he's going to have to weigh that decision. And
and
how much that degree matters.
Right. And here's the other thing. You have to think of the logistics, right? If he waits until the bowl game to go hit the transfer portal, right? The bowl game's on the 29th. Transfer portal closes on the 2nd. So that doesn't leave you a lot of time unless you know already where you're going and you've already had talks with those people, which is definitely possible, but you're not leaving yourself much time to jump in the portal and find a landing spot. You know what I mean? So from a logistics standpoint, it might be difficult for him to transfer at that point. Now, could he go through spring practice and then jump into the portal in April? Yeah, he could. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. And that's why you go get the 4th scholarship arm in the first place, is because of this potential problem. And I'm not saying that I'm not breaking news that we know that Steve Angeli is going to transfer. I'm just saying it wouldn't necessarily surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me at all based on, one, just look at what happened last year. You had 2 guys transfer and, when you brought in a transfer quarterback. So it would not shock me at all.
Yeah. It would just have to, like I said, from a logistics standpoint, to have him transfer right now, he would have to do it now and not play in the bowl game, in my opinion, so that he could actually find a landing spot.
Couple comments, questions in here. Michael wants to know your feelings on Fisher potentially leaving early. He says he thinks it's a huge mistake. Also, who do you think starts the bowl game and offensive line? We kind of went through that just a second ago.
Yeah, if Fisher leaves, I think that he's leaving prematurely. Just from a film standpoint, he's got a lot of measurables. He's strong. He's all of these different things, but I think it is a mistake personally.
I've said this multiple times. I think that Blake Fisher is an NFL guard. Right now, he's an NFL guard. He has not shown that he has the footwork to be an NFL tackle. And I agree. I think it would be a big mistake for him to leave early.
I do too.
I think he's got the cart ahead of the horse right now.
Agreed.
But if it would be Emil Wagner, Emil Wagner had a good camp and they really liked Emil Wagner. He just hasn't had the opportunities yet. I would put good money that it would be Emil Wagner starting at right tackle.
And if Joe Alt Joe Alt declares and says he's not going to play, then, Tosh Baker probably steps in on the left side. And then you've got the three guys in the middle that started in the Stanford game. So that would be your offensive line for the Sun Bowl.
Correct. Yeah, Kris getting in a little bit late. We were just talking about that a few minutes ago. Chris Tyree on to Virginia, back at his home state at the University of Virginia, and he'll be back at Notre Dame Stadium next November when the Cavs come to town.
November 16th, man. Circle it on the calendar, folks.
Antoine saying DJ Uiagalelei down to Florida State and Louisville. I mean, Florida State wishes they could have him like a week ago.
Well, I'll tell you what. Again, if he chooses either one of those schools, he's going to play Notre Dame again. And he lit him up once, and he got dominated the second time. So which DJ are you going to get? That's going to be the question.
I concur. Beezer 12 Washings beard. He says he's married, and here soon I will be the quarterback DB coach at a high school he's teaching at. Like you, I'm married with no desire to coach. Any tips on how to smooth over the wife?
Oh, man. Lots of begging, a lot of pebbles in the jar throughout the off season. And just, hey, if you say you're going to, here's the key, right? Especially during 2-a-days and practice and all that. If you say you're going to be home at a certain time, you darn well better be home at that time. All right. No, practice ran long. Like,
just tell her about all that money you're going to make, man. I mean, you're going to be rolling in dough.
Yeah.
All high school coach.
$2,000 or whatever you're going to make.
Right.
Dude, it's a great calling to be a high school coach. I loved every second of it, but it can be a strain at home, man. So just be careful.
Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I didn't think we'd ever get here. We're almost on for an hour, buddy.
I know.
Let's go, baby.
People don't appreciate it. DK definitely doesn't appreciate it. I'll tell you that much right now. We got a lot of, just like yesterday, just like last week, like we've got a lot of, like rapid fire has just been loaded lately.
Yes.
I feel like.
Yes, I agree.
We're packing a lot of punch in rapid fire. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame getting a commitment from Florida international wide receiver Kris Mitchell today is blank.
It's huge. And it shows the game plan for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. And we talked about this at the top, and I love it. I think there's a very clear game plan for Notre Dame. They have identified the guys that they want. They're getting them on campus immediately, and they're taking their commitments, and they're making this a destination in the transfer portal. And I think it's fantastic. I love it. And I think arguably they've got the top 3 wide receivers in the transfer portal coming into Notre Dame, and who they have identified as the top quarterback for them coming in, and the top nickel. And they're doing all of this in a matter of like 3 or 4 days, man. Like boom, 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 boom. I love it.
Number one, he's an outside receiver, which they obviously need. That was an issue this year. Now, the coach of the position was an issue as well. How much of an issue? I'll let you all just make your own decisions on that, because everyone's got their own opinions on who the problem was and all that kind of stuff. I addressed it yesterday. Go back and watch yesterday's show if you want my opinion on that. But this guy, Mitchell, 4th best Pro Football Focus deep ball grade in 2023, 10th in receptions of 30-plus yards. So you're talking about explosive downfield guy. He had over 1,100 yards for the season. And, look, Notre Dame's top 2 wide receivers this year, were Rico Flores Jr. and Chris Tyree. They combined for 53 catches and 876 yards. So this guy alone topped both of those numbers by himself, almost 300 more yards than those 2 guys combined. You throw in Jaden Thomas, you get 251 more yards from him. You get to 1,127. So really, like, this guy has got the production of Notre Dame's top 3 wide receivers by himself.
Yeah.
So like that tells you the kind of guy that they're getting, and they're in the market for even more. There's more guys visiting this week. They're going to get at least 1 more. And again, I would not be shocked if they get 2 more, considering, the kind of guys that they're looking at right now. And there's a difference in getting this kind of guy compared to, like, remember when they got Freddie Canteen a few years back?
Yeah.
It's like, that was like a guy who never really got any shot, didn't have a whole lot of experience. Like, this is a guy somewhat similar, like to Sam Hart. When you look at the production, like a guy coming from a smaller school, he's got production, he's got a chance to make a big step, both on the field, try to elevate his draft stock, and also combined with that, there are going to be many more opportunities for NIL at Notre Dame than there were at Florida International.
100%. Everything you said, he checks a lot of boxes for Notre Dame right now, and Notre Dame checks a lot of boxes for Kris, and I think that's important too. I mean, it's a two-way street, right? He is put together.
Paul, apparently you got here late. He says, reporting that X Watts will play in the bowl.
Yes.
We had it straight from Xavier Watts's mouth on this show at the start of the show earlier. Yes, indeed. He is playing in the bowl. Still don't know if he's going to declare for the draft or not. More on Xavier Watts coming up here in just a minute. But let's stick with the wide receivers first. Fill in the blank. The word that best describes how you feel about Notre Dame's wide receiver situation heading into the Sun Bowl is blank.
Comfortable. I mean, I'm not like excited. I'm not ecstatic. I'm not worried. I'm comfortable. They got the same amount of scholarship wide receivers going into the Sun Bowl that they had going into the bowl game last year. And, okay, let's go. There's going to be lots of opportunities for guys to make some plays and to make a name for themselves going into the offseason. I'm not worried by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're going to be just fine. They're going to have plenty of guys. They're fine. All good. I'm comfortable with it.
Comfortable, I think, is a good way to put it. Sloppy Joe and stymie, optimistic, opportunity. I'll say I'm cheating a little bit because I guess I'm using two words, somewhat uncertain, but at the same time, I do feel pretty good. Like Deion Colzie has not done a lot, and it's still like, Deion, but they're getting Deion Colzie back.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman said he's going to play, and when you look at, what they need, I really would have been curious to see had Deion Colzie had more opportunities during the season, what that might have looked like for both him and for Notre Dame, considering they needed a guy with that body type on the outside.
Yeah, big time. Big time. Yeah.
And so I feel like this could be a big opportunity for Deion Colzie in this game, and getting Jaden Thomas back. Thomas has been back, but he's never been like that hamstring, never completely healed. Hopefully with this extra time off that's able to happen. Like having dealt with hamstrings just per game. So it's not like they lit the world on fire. So I do feel pretty confident in what they've got coming into this game. They've got Colzie, they've got Thomas, they've got Jaden Greathouse, they've got KK Smith. He might get some opportunity in this game as well.
Sounds like
freshman, and Jordan Faison and Matt Salerno. I mean, that's 6 receivers. I feel confident that they can go out there and do a more than serviceable job in this bowl game.
Yeah, me too. It's just not something I'm worried about at all. You should be more worried about the tackles if that's the case. If those guys are going to opt out, be more worried about those guys than you are about the wide receivers. I mean, again, I'm not certain that Oregon State's going to be firing on all cylinders with their personnel either. But, if we're just talking about Notre Dame and a faceless opponent, everything's going to be fine at wide receiver for this one game. They're going to be just fine.
Apparently, we've got people in the chat saying the show keeps freezing up. Like we haven't had any freezes between us. We're both still.
That's a YouTube
like when
problem.
we've had problems here. Like one of us will freeze up and the other, that kind of thing. So you're right. It might be like the YouTube thing. I don't know, but we're not having any issues on our end. So there's really nothing.
Sorry guys.
Hopefully,
we're good on our end. So I don't know what to tell you. We believe me, we have no problem throwing StreamYard under the bus. But I think at this point it's not their fault. So
right.
DK says it's Ron Paulus's fault.
Hey. There you go.
There you know.
Fill in the blank. Xavier Watts winning the Bronco Nagurski Award for Defensive Player of the Year is blank.
Surprising yet deserving. I guess I haven't been paying close enough of attention to know that he was a finalist and that they were announcing it, last evening. I just didn't realize
Well,
it.
that's
And all of
what's
a sudden,
weird. It's like I thought they did.
that's
Like, what happened to the end of season? Like when they
the
did the
college
big
football
award show. I thought
awards.
that was coming
Yeah.
up this weekend or something, right?
Well, apparently the Bronco Nagurski people are like, we're doing our own thing.
I guess.
And it was a star-studded event. I mean, it was, what was it? Everybody's in tuxedos and everything else. I mean, it was a big deal. And so I was surprised. I was not expecting it, but I think it's well-deserved with the season that he put up, man. No one could be happier. Well, his parents probably. Not many people could be happier for him than I am, just because of all the crap that he had to deal with at Notre Dame, as far as like switching positions and, trying to play both positions at once and doing all of these different things to finally be settled in at a position and then showing what he's got, man. That was awesome. That's awesome.
I agree. Like, you could have won a ton of money. I don't even think they probably had a betting line on the Bronco Nagurski Award coming into the season. But if you had betted on Xavier Watts, like coming into the season, I wouldn't have even put it on Xavier Watts. Like, I would have put it on Benjamin
Seriously.
Morrison. Like, that's of the players on Notre Dame's defense based on the season. And that's the guy that people were talking about. And that's exactly like Jesse is talking about Manti Te'o. That's the last time a Notre Dame player won this award. Manti in 2012, when he won almost everything except the Heisman and a couple other, like offensive, like basically if there was an award a defensive player could win, Manti won it
100%.
that year. He hauled in the hardware.
Yes.
But that's what's crazy is like, it's not just how good Xavier Watts was this year and where he came from at the start of training camp to get to where he is this year with all the interceptions and everything he did. Think about the last decade plus of Notre Dame football, and you had guys like Jalen Smith and Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah a couple of years ago who were Butkus winners themselves, but they didn't even win the Nagurski Award. And like, that's the rarefied era that Xavier Watts is in. So you're absolutely right. It is well-deserved for the season that he has, but it's just crazy to think about where he came from to where he is right now to get it. So
It's just
very
crazy.
well done by him. Very
Just
well done.
nuts. And do we know who the finalists are for the Thorpe Award? Somebody said he didn't win the Thorpe Award, but they haven't announced the winner. So, I mean, is he not even a finalist for that?
I don't know.
I'm trying to look for it, and I'm not having a whole lot of luck. But that's typical. I'll keep efforting. We'll see.
Okay. I got my Google on right here.
Maybe you'll find it before me.
The finalists are Iowa cornerback Cooper DeJean, Georgia safety Malachi Starks, who was up for the Nagurski Award and didn't win, and Air Force safety Trey Taylor.
Not even a finalist for it.
Nation's best defensive back. So that's crazy.
Yes.
That he didn't even make the finalist for best defensive backs. You better fix your Google machine there, Vince. Like, you can't. Come on. I'm on that right away.
I was silly and I went to the actual Jim Thorpe Award website and I can't find who the finalists are. So whatever.
Chris, I think this might be a good idea. We might just have to buy or ban that spammer, Jesse Stiers. I don't know who that is. Living on the edge out there. Going back to the receivers, Bryce wanted to know where Matt Salerno was this year. He was injured most of the season.
He will be available for the bowl game, though. So
he was back, I think, the last 3 games. At least the last 2, if not the last 3.
Definitely the last 2, because he went in there and he was blocking and he was doing some different things. And I don't think he got a catch, but I remember seeing him on the field when I was watching the film. But he's back.
Yeah, Michael says Estime didn't make the finalist for the Doak Walker Award. That we know, and that was total crime. Total crime.
No doubt.
Tommy Guns. I missed whatever the reference was. Not sure if the Elder Stiers knows the reference. I guess I missed that. So here's one that people have been talking about tonight. Tyler Buckner entered the transfer portal. Reportedly intends to come back to Notre Dame to play lacrosse. He was one of the top lacrosse players in the nation in high school. And actually, I know he had committed someplace to go play lacrosse before he ended up coming to Notre Dame to play quarterback. But there's already talk about him rejoining the football team. This is at large. I don't know if this is actually coming from him or not. So what do you think about that idea, Vince? Doing the Jordan Faison, basically. Tyler Buckner comes back to Notre Dame on a lacrosse scholarship, and maybe he's a walk-on on the football team as well.
I do not like it. As much as I was a Tyler Buchner fan, it's time to turn that page. And if he wants to come back and play lacrosse, that's awesome. I know he was a very, very, very talented lacrosse player in high school. I know that is true. But if the lacrosse team is going to take him, obviously the lacrosse team is incredibly talented. They're coming off of the national championship. If they think that he can help them, even better. I just think that, hey, go immerse yourself in being a lacrosse guy. Like, that's fine. Go do your thing. I have no ill will towards Tyler Buchner. I think we can all agree going to Alabama probably wasn't the best decision he's ever made. And now he has an opportunity to come back to Notre Dame, get his degree as well, by the way, which I think is a huge reason to be coming back to Notre Dame.
That might be a big factor. Like, this is a way around like the fact that maybe he couldn't join the football. Like Marcus Freeman, as I just put that comment up, did say he's welcome back and all that. There's a couple of different things to this. One, there would be a huge time commitment on Tyler Buchner's part. Like, is that what he really wants to do, or does he want to come back and play lacrosse and have a chance to play for a really good lacrosse team? It seems like that's part of his thing, that's what he's going to do. Two, okay, let's say he does do this. Like, he's a scholarship lacrosse player and he walks on the football team. So Tyler Buchner, who was the opening day starter 2 years ago, is just going to say, okay, I'll be the scout team quarterback for a year or two for Notre Dame, because that's essentially the role that he would be thrust into.
What's the point?
Right.
What's the point? I mean, going through all of that to be a backup, like that, there's no point in that. That's why I don't see that being the case. I just really don't. And so, somebody said there's no scholarships available for lacrosse. I believe Jordan Faison just gave up a scholarship.
There are scholarships, and that was going to be my third point. There are scholarships for lacrosse, but like baseball, they are partial scholarships.
Correct.
And that's why, but my next part to this was going to be, remember, like Jordan Faison, when he stepped foot on the football field and took his first snaps against Louisville, that meant the football team had to give him a scholarship.
Correct.
And
which means he had to give up his lacrosse.
Right. The lacrosse scholarship went away, but now the football team has to commit to a scholarship. So if they were going to go down that road with Tyler Buchner, and let's say it's Riley Leonard going into next year as the starter, I mean, Tyler Buchner would make sense, as like the number 2 quarterback. But if he actually played as the number 2 quarterback,
you have to get
then he's not a walk-on anymore. You've got to commit a scholarship to it.
Right.
And where are you with your scholarship limit? We don't even know where that's going to be right now. So
I just don't know why he would want to. What's the end game of going and knowing you're going to be a backup? I don't understand.
That's exactly it. Like I said,
that.
that's a huge time commitment to just come in and say, I'm going to be a backup and I'm not going to step foot on the field when you're already trying to get a degree at Notre Dame and play another sport full time. That's a huge time commitment. And I don't see it. I don't see it.
No, neither do I. In case you're curious, there's 12.6 scholarships available for men's Division I lacrosse. So 12.6 to spread out however you want to spread it out, but 12.6 is the answer. So, he's not getting a full ride to go play lacrosse, but that's okay because he's literally been going to school for free for 5 years or whatever, 4 years or whatever the year is, right? He's been going to school for free. He can pay a little bit to go to Notre Dame. It'll be okay.
Concur. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, and Marvin Harrison Jr. are the 4 Heisman Trophy finalists.
I think that's probably pretty expected, to be honest with you. I don't know that there's any glaring, omissions, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm not a big fan of Marvin Harrison Jr. being on there. I don't know that he really performed in the big games. But I think that's more of a knock on who was throwing him the football and the play calling, just trying to jam it down his throat. So I just don't think I don't think he belongs with that particular group of people. But if they had to go to 4, they had to go to 4. I mean, that's fine.
Well, Vince,
he's a different 4 for me.
I don't know about you, but I was told that Jordan Travis is the most important quarterback in the country.
Good call. Good call.
If Jordan Travis is that important, why is Jordan Travis not a Heisman Trophy finalist? How did this happen? How did this travesty happen? Not just once, but twice. Like, Jordan Travis and his cast should be up there on that stage this weekend in New York. It's I get it. People vote for it, and of course, I'm
Right.
being somewhat facetious here.
But you make a good point. If
Because
it was
these
enough
guys are all
yeah.
deserving. You know, you're
Yeah.
right. Like Marvin Harrison, did he really have that? And I don't know, but it's just there's just so much double talk and jive
Yeah.
talk
Jive
going
talk.
on.
You jive
You
talker.
jive turkey.
oh,
You just call me a jive turkey.
that's fantastic.
Underrated. Definitely.
So
an
who's your
underrated
favorite?
scene.
Who do you think should win it?
I think Jaden Daniels is probably going to win it. Personally, I like Michael Penix a little bit more, but just the numbers and everything that Jaden Daniels has done, I think that he has probably been, I mean, just look at the offense that LSU has. Like, you can't knock him for their defense, obviously, and that's why they've lost the games that they've lost. But, again, Florida State head-to-head, Jordan Travis won that game, but I think Jaden Daniels ends up winning the thing this weekend.
I think Jaden Daniels is the most dynamic quarterback out there right now. I do. I think he should win it. I would not be surprised, though, and I would be okay if Penix won it. I think that he is, the best player on an undefeated team, right? And of course, there's the petty side of me that doesn't want Brian Kelly to have coached a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. That is part of it. But I'm also ecstatic, absolutely over the moon that J.J. McCarthy is not a Heisman finalist.
Good call. Good call.
Wow, would that have been terrible.
I think that any hope of that went away in that Penn State game when he had no touchdown passes in that win over Penn State.
Right.
You have to, and they handed off 34 straight times to close the game against Penn State. You can't just be a good quarterback for a really good team. You actually have to be a difference maker. And, these four guys are all definitely difference makers. Jordan Travis is a difference maker too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Be curious to see where he ended up. I'd really be curious to see, like, if you took a recount right now after everything that happened with Florida State over the weekend, if Jordan Travis ends up being a finalist, like if he got some different sentiment from some of these voters based on what happened with the playoff committee excluding Florida State this weekend. Be interested to see.
Yeah, I would be very interested to see that as well. Yeah, for sure.
So on that subject, Stephen A. Smith says if Florida State alum Deion Sanders was Florida State's head coach, they wouldn't have been left out of the playoffs. Do you buy or sell it, Vince?
Wow, that is some serious clickbait. The sad part is
you're right. Right.
Right. The sad part is he may actually be right on this because of the media hoopla that is surrounding Deion Sanders. Now, if he was Florida State's head coach, are they still undefeated? Like, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not 100% sold necessarily on Deion Sanders as a head coach. So I don't know that they would still be undefeated. So what you're saying, you're going to erase the work that the current head coach of Florida State did and just place Deion Sanders as the head coach. Just a little bit of a stretch, but with the way the thing, man, I could see it being the case. I really could.
I mean, that's the difference. Like, you can put 13 people in a room and they can say that they're not biased, but it's human nature. There's automatically going to be some kind of bias just based on how they feel. And even if it's subconscious bias, I would not be shocked at all.
Yeah.
If I buy this, I completely buy it. That whole factor, especially like if it was like this year and just the the groundswell that Deion, just look
Yeah.
at the attention. And I know that, again, like that kind of biases people against Deion because of all the attention, the excess, as it turned out, undue attention. But he really helped, he turned a Colorado program that had one win last year that nobody paid attention to for 12 years in the Pac-12. And they got some of the highest ratings in college football early in the season. Now, did those ratings go away as the season went on? Of course, as they started
because they were
losing some games.
Yeah, they were losing.
I mean, right. But not quite in the same ballpark as Notre Dame, but
it'd bring eyeballs.
It is a TV show at the end of the day.
It would bring eyeballs. And look, let's be honest, right? I mean, the college football playoff matchups that we have this year going in are two really, really good football games, and potentially they're two really good football games. They're going to bring a lot of eyeballs. You've got blue bloods all over the place. And if you put Florida State in, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because I think Florida State should have been in, but if you have Florida State, how many people are watching Michigan versus Florida State? Like, I don't think a lot of people are going to watch that game because it's a foregone conclusion that Michigan's going to win.
A lot more eyeballs on Michigan versus Alabama, and giggity says, I think Alabama was picked to beat Michigan. And, again, like when you start talking about internal biases that people have, like, could you put it past them? Like, not that they openly discussed, like, this is how we're going to, but like someone's going to start, like in these conversations that they had in the room, I could easily, it's like, this is how we're going to kind of maybe get back at old Jim Harbaugh. Like, this is how he's going to maybe get his comeuppance in this whole thing. He's going to be number one, but he's going to go up against Alabama.
Let's not forget where Boo Corrigan went to school, folks. All right. That deep-seated hatred for Michigan it's in his blood. All right.
I don't doubt it. Well, I guess that's it for tonight, Vince.
Oh, are we done?
We are.
All right. My wife's sending me pictures of dinner from upstairs.
We kind of breezed through rapid fire. This was not a
You're right. It kind of was a little bit.
This was not a Steyer's rapid fire like we had last night.
That's okay. I mean, that's okay. But see, we put more emphasis on the syllable of the beginning. All right. Of the, the first part.
That's true.
You and I generally do a lot more at the beginning part. And then rapid fire is just kind of a fun way to end things, that kind of a deal. So maybe it's just opposite when you have a different co-host.
Corned beef got the joke. Now, Sean, nobody called you a JT. Have you seen Tropic Thunder?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Aren't they playing like poker or something? They're like they're down in like a basement or something.
The guy starts shooting the gun. You
Yeah.
jive, turkey.
You call me a jive turkey. Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, that was good stuff.
Yes, it was.
What is for dinner, by the way, tonight, Vince?
I believe meat raviolis in a meat sauce. So a lot of meat and pasta. Meat and pasta. How could you go wrong? And some Caesar salad.
All right. Well, I don't think there's going to be a show tomorrow because I've got a women's basketball game, but we will be back on Thursday. So look forward to that. And I'm sure a lot's going to happen between now and Thursday as well.
Seriously.
My guess is there's going to be a lot to talk about. So,
I guarantee it.
Yes.
I guarantee it.
So we
a lot of opt-outs, I'm guessing, is what we'll have to talk about on Thursday, is my guess. Yeah.
I think you're right. Thanks to everyone for being here. We appreciate it as always. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe, rate, and review. Jesse, thanks for popping in the chat as well. If he's still hanging out in there. For Vince, I'm Sean, and we will talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.